We have the IT Minister of Tamil Nadu, Mr. Palnivel Tyagarajan, with us. Sir, you would have come across news about electoral bonds like in the last 1 week, very frequently. So I would like to ask you, what is your first reaction to the electoral bond scheme that the SC calling it unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court making the Election Commission of India publish the data in their domain as to who bought how many electoral bonds and what were the encashments made by political parties?
Look, I think there's some really profound issues here, right? I mean, I haven't done the analysis myself, but I've been following it online. And I think you have to start from the very basics. The notion of a democracy, of the model of governance that is a democracy, is intricately tied to the notion of having some kind of free market capitalism. Because from the days of Karl Marx, including the current kind of analysis from economists like Thomas Piketty, it's very clear that the natural tendency of free markets and capitalism is to provide very big winners who get so rich that they can become so powerful with their money that they can subvert the governance to their benefits. So at the core of democracy is to have a level playing field, is to have accountability, is to have transparency, is to have strong institutions that prevent economic winners or business winners from effectively taking control of the governance, right? And many people have written about this. Long ago, Professor Raghuram Rajan and his colleague at the University of Chicago wrote a book called Saving Capitalism from the Capitalists, where they talk about those who become so successful through lobbying, through donations, can subvert the democratic system. So in that sense, if you start from the basics that democracy is vital for having free market capitalism be successful and achieve growth and improve people's lives, as opposed to communism or dictatorship, then transparency and level playing fields are vital to a democracy. In my mind, this electoral bond scheme was completely the antithesis of transparency and level playing field, right? It was atrociously bad, one-sided. Why? It's more than the fact that the funding is opaque. Because there's no way you can run a system that is opaque to everybody, including the government. So what this system did, it built a platform where the government knew not only who was donating to it, but also who was donating to its opponents. Whereas the opponents knew nothing. The public knew nothing. So this was actually an atrociously bad design, where it gave one-sided information to the ruling party who could get all details about everybody, and the rest of the state, the country, the people were left in the dark. So, though it came very late in my opinion, this should have been struck down as anti-constitutional or unconstitutional on the day it was announced or shortly thereafter. Though it is 6 years late, I welcome this judgment because it is, as the data now shows, it has saved the last vestiges of democracy. Because whatever I said hypothetically would be a problem in an opaque system where only the government got the information, preliminary analysis of the data shows it is that and worse. We have seen so many cases of quid pro quo, positive and negative. That is to say, people who are under investigation, people who have already been raided, targeted, end up paying money and getting the investigation quashed. People who are about to get contracts pay money and get contracts. People who have got contracts then go and pay money. So this quid pro quo, which is against the very fabric of democracy, has been institutionalized through this kind of atrociously bad scheme. And it is appalling to me. Like, the thing that really worries me, see, you want robust independent institutions. We want the Election Commission to be independent. We want the Income Tax Department to be independent. We want the CBI to be independent. All those have become effectively arms of the ruling party, BJP government. That itself is a big failure of democracy. Now we are seeing a bank. Now, bank is a completely different institution because it's sitting on public deposits. Here you have the biggest bank in India, nationalized bank, that effectively seems to be functioning as a tool of the BJP government. First declining to give the data, citing all kinds of nonsense about how long it will take. Then publishing the data with big gaps. The 2,500 crores before 2019, which is the biggest chunk, of which 95% went to the BJP, that is not published. The data that is published doesn't have any serial numbers for cross-referencing. It is appalling to me because, to me, I'm still so aggravated. How can a bank, how can a nationalized bank file such a submission to the Supreme Court that says it cannot get done? like anybody who knows anything rudimentary about banking, right? Let's assume, I'm going to give you a hypothetical. Let's assume 100% of the documents came in paper. Let's assume that they were submitted at different branches. Let's assume that they were processed in different branches, etc. There is something called settling and clearing, meaning at some point the money has to actually move from account A to account B, or from cash to account A, or from account B to cash or something. Settling and clearing is 100% mandated and regulated by the RBI. So no matter how the document or the transaction came to you, when it finally finished its process, that the money had to go from A to U, from U to B, both those must have been electronically recorded somewhere. Otherwise, this banking system is failing. Otherwise, you have a parallel banking system where tens of thousands of crores can be processed without any electronic record. So if these transactions have to be recorded, otherwise you're not in compliance with basic banking. You're not fit to be a bank. It means you're running basically a black money scheme inside a bank. Therefore, if that cannot be true, all these must have had electronic records, at least post on the settlement of the transaction. For the bank to come and say that I cannot give you these records 3 months, 6 months, is beyond the pale to me. It is beyond the limits of professionalism or decency. If I had my kind of true, input into this, we should go to ask the court to hold SBI in contempt for filing a false document in the court, right? That's how bad a document that is. So, I still think there's more data to come. When it comes, I think you're still going to get more clarity, because once the serial numbers come, there's going to be more matching. But the whole episode reeks of, like, the death of democracy is going to be foretold by these kinds of actions, right? And therefore, this to me is a reprieve, and the evidence shows that.
So did you look at the data, the two sets of data put out by the Election Commission, the receiver's data and then the purchaser's data? Like, what were you able to make out of it?
See, I haven't had the time to actually do the analysis myself. I've seen the spreadsheets. I think they came out yesterday evening. I've been traveling, so I haven't had a chance to look at it. But I've seen analysis from 3-4 people. And in my office, they've taken the PDF files and made them into spreadsheets. It's a bit easier to do this matching without the serial numbers for one reason. One party has been the overwhelming beneficiary. If there were many parties, it's a question of combinatorial mathematics. So if there had been many parties getting roughly equal amounts of money or in the same league of money, and the dates are only X number of dates, it would have been harder to show which money went where. But because you have one party that is the beneficiary of giant amount of money and a lot of parties that are only beneficiaries to very small numbers, anybody who knows how to write good programs would actually have been able to get 90-95% accuracy in being able to tell which donation went to whom. Of course, when the serial numbers come, you'll get 100% accuracy, right? So I myself haven't had the time. I'm assuming there are, better minds and people who have already been working on this that are on it. When the serial numbers come, I think the greater clarity will come.
Sir, also there is an accusation that investigative agencies like the Enforcement Directorate and CBI, they were used as, extortive agencies, like to extort money from the, companies, corporate companies. Like I've seen reports that, as soon as ED or a CBI, like they raid or they search a premise of a corporate company, the company later in a few days makes a donation through electoral bonds. We don't know where this donation went to, which political party this donation went to, but the whole, allegation that the investigative agencies are being used as a tool by the Union BJP government. Do you agree with that?
Well, the data is the data, right? I can't refute the data. Listen, we have already seen these entities be used as tools politically to topple governments, to buy MLAs, to buy MPs, to prevent formation of governments. We have seen N instances of that in the last 10 years. Now we are seeing that the same tools can also be used financially, not just politically. So I've seen the analysis of others, and it's very clear, right? Let's say somebody gets raided and then they give a donation. Who are they going to give it to? To the opposition? How will it help them? It must have been to the party that can control the raid. More importantly, you get raided, donation happens, then no prosecution happens. It's not rocket science to connect the dots, no?
So Also, sir, my final question, you were talking about the serial numbers that the ECI, the SBI has been told to give by the Supreme Court. So when the serial number comes out, can we expect a strong, a narrative from the side of the opposition? Like when we are able to correlate, who gave how much money to which political party, will the opposition be able to bring up with a stronger narrative against the BJP and, use it to their advantage during elections?
See, that I can't predict but I'm saying, as of now, we already have 95% clarity of where the money went because of this combinatorial math only working one way. If we have more clarity, it will be even easier to connect the dot on which date, which agency went to which company and how much did they pay, or exactly what the extortion trail or the benefit trail was of who got what contract, etc. My point is, these are all antithetical or they are corrosive to the notion of democracy. It is not a question of opposition ruling. These things are just, it is the death of democracy if these things continue, because now you have full-fledged crony capitalism and the state being used as a weapon by one party for the furtherance of its political means and continuation in power. So, of course, the opposition of all types, anybody who is a believer in democracy, anybody who believes India should remain a democracy, should make this a huge issue. It's not a question of political party or not. For every adherent to the notion of democracy, this must be one of the biggest issues, and say that democracy is in great danger, and has been for several years. And we cannot allow this kind of administration to continue to repeat these kinds of extra-constitutional, anti-democratic activities.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for talking to us. That is Tamil Nadu's IT Minister, Mr. Palnivel Tyagarajan, telling us that democracy is in, a grave threat, is under grave threat, and that when the serial numbers of linked to the electoral bonds come out, when the SBI puts it out, the opposition will be able to know, and everybody, for a fact, the whole of India will be able to know who contributed, which corporate company contributed, how much to which political party. So that is something the opposition is waiting for, and the whole of country is waiting for. Dharni with Manish for Times Network from Chennai.